School board meeting for Monday, October 15th, 2018. If you could please join us.
What time is your appointment?
In the Pledge of Allegiance.
What time is your appointment?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. There is a sign-up sheet in the back of the room, and if you could please sign up if you would like to make a comment at the end of this board meeting. Moving on to our agenda, our approvals, deletions, and additions. Dr. Morocco.
Thank you, Mr. Baxter. You have a revised agenda at your workstation. Roman numeral 7B, additional personnel recommendations. Roman numeral 7C, professional leave requests under Mrs. Schoen.
Do I hear a motion?
Move to approve.
We have a motion from Ms. Seuss. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a second from Mr. Howard. Any comments or questions? Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Is there any correspondence, Ms. Seuss?
There is no correspondence this evening.
Okay, thank you. Moving on to our liaison committee updates. Let's start with Mr. Marshall.
Thank you, Mr. President. The Westlake Joint Managing Board meeting is scheduled at Lake Central in the month of November. And if our director at the east or west end of the tables here can confirm the date, it escapes me at this time. Becky?
Give me just one moment here.
Okay, thank you.
It is November 14th at 4 o'clock.
Okay, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Nothing to report on the Personnel Interview Committee.
All right, thank you very much. Dr. Malco?
Yes, we're very excited tonight because we are honoring our recipients of the Lake Central Education Foundation grants. So we look forward to honoring you in a few minutes, and thanks for your dedication to going above and beyond. And I'm speculating that our legislative committee will meet probably sometime in December with our elected legislators.
All right, that's it? That would be it? Okay,
That would be it. Mm-hmm.
thank you. Ms. Lessenty?
Cherville Redevelopment Committee, nothing new to report at this time. For Wellness Committee, we met October 10th, and the flu shots for this season will be held at Kaler on October 15th, at Grimmer on October 19th, and at Lake Central on October 22nd. And that is for the entire staff is eligible for that, so that they can come in working with the Wellness Committee. We talked about our annual Wellness Health Fair and put our committee together. We're sending out surveys to find out what the teachers and what the staff would like for that. The collaborative efforts with the Lake Central School Board and Community Health Care Systems were reviewed as families are welcomed to urgent care facilities in managing certain health concerns. So that's been saving us money. Again, we are one of the few corporations or few businesses even that our health care has remained the same for the last 7 years, the cost. We know eventually that will end up rising, but because we're doing things with the Wellness Committee, because our staff is using these other alternative places in place of the expensive emergency rooms, things like that, I thank all of you because that's saving us all money. So thank you very much. And that is our report.
Awesome.
Very good.
Thank you. Ms. Seuss?
I have nothing for the St. John Redevelopment Committee, and the Dollars for Scholars and the Mentor Program will be hosting their annual Ghouls at the Schools Monday, October 29th from 4:30 to 6:30 here at the high school. It is $6 per child, cash only, pay at the door, and lots of trick-or-treating to be had.
Mrs. Seuss, I'm sorry, what's the date on that one?
October 29th, the Monday?
Okay. And it's held here in the school?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. I have nothing to report for Dyer Parks Department, and on the redevelopment committee side, if you've been going through Dyer lately, you notice they're putting a lot more sidewalks in. So we're getting more and more sidewalks, especially on, what is that, North Hart Street, Sheffield. There's quite a few new sidewalks going in. On the west side of the block, they're doing curb improvements as well, all the way down Sheffield, as well as 213th. So hopefully a lot of these sidewalks now will help our kids get
Right,
that access to the schools that they need.
Mhm.
And moving on to our official school board business topics, our consent agenda. Dr. Rocco.
Thank you again, Mr. Back. So seek board approval for the minutes from the October 1st meeting, as well as the approval of claims, payroll, and extracurricular expenditures you received last week.
All right, do I hear a motion?
Move to approve.
There's a motion for Mr. Marshall. Is there a second?
Second? Oh, go ahead.
A second from Ms. Lessentine. Okay, any comments or questions regarding that consent agenda?
All right, I will be abstaining from the approval of minutes since I was not in attendance on October 1.
Okay. Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? And one abstain? Motion passes. Moving on to our public comments regarding those action items. So are there any public comments regarding those previous action items?
No. Upcoming action items.
Oh, upcoming action items, sorry. Hearing none, we'll move on to our official school board business topics, our regular agenda for this evening. Dr. Bracco.
Thank you again. I just want to update the board on our MetLife retirement plan review. You have a sheet with some bullet points at your station. I'll quickly go through that list of items. So we have an investment policy committee that's made up of 4 teachers, Mr. James, myself, and representatives of Metropolitan Life. Under the guidance of the MetLife representative, we evaluate the performance of fund options and compare them to the industry standard. So like funds, for instance, if you have large capitalization funds, international funds, we compare them to other funds that are very similar in the makeup, and any fund that performs consistently in the lower 25% is placed on watch. And when I say consistently, that is over a 3-year period. We tend to watch these funds over a 1, 3, 5, and 10-year period. Over time, we have had to replace 2 of the funds that were in our portfolio. Usually what we've seen is we put them on a watch list and then they bounce back up and get into the upper half of performance. And so they don't stay on a watch list long enough to be removed. Recently, we met on October 9th to review the BlackRock International Dividend Fund that has been underperforming. Additionally, MetLife hit us with something else, and that was an option to raise the annual maintenance fees on all employee deposits from 0.4% per year to 0.78% per year. In exchange for paying the higher fee to MetLife, LC would not have to ask permission should we ever want to exchange one investment fund for another. The committee, the early returns is the committee did not believe the change was in the best interest of our staff/savers, since we've only exchanged 2 funds since the inception of this plan back in 2004. We'll still be following up with MetLife to review third quarter 2018 performance numbers. We'll be reviewing alternative funds for consideration for the BlackRock International Dividend Fund in the event that the performance in this fund is still in the bottom quartile of its asset class by summer of 2019. We are going to get the opportunity to review reimbursement figures, meaning how much individual funds are paying MetLife out of our individual employee returns in order to better understand their fee structure. So we're digging a little deeper than we have in the past. I want to thank Mrs. Hensley, Mr. Myers, Mrs. Madrowski, Mr. Smith, and Mr. James for carving out 2 hours twice a year to serve on this committee. That's all on that.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
And my next item is just to welcome Mike Seljan and anybody else he brought with him who are going to be giving out some Education Foundation grants. Looks like it's going to be Louise Talent and Melody Wolf.
There's our student liaison, so he'll come up and help us out too. First is Denise Kelly. She comes from Taylor. Oh, sorry, let me tell her a little bit. We're Lake Central Education Foundation. We raise money for grants for teachers or community members or people that would like to help support education. This time, the total amount we are giving out is $1,926.89. This is our 49th round that we're doing. So next time, here tonight. The first one is Denise Kelly. She's from Kaler. I can see clearly now. Students will employ STEM, which is science, technology, engineering, and math, cooperatively using problem-solving strategies to use and operate a microscope properly in order to complete labs and answer questions pertaining to the field of life science. Okay? And then one of our tech trainers got together with our math person, which is Julie Moore and Trish Geis. They're with Elementary District Mathematics. I didn't know exactly what your title was together, okay? Grading for standardized test skills with Breakout EDU. Using unplugged activities with hands-on and digital tasks that align with standardized testing skills, it will create problem solvers that use higher order thinking skills to persevere through the strenuous tasks. This can assist students that have difficulty with multi-step problems and build upon each other that require extended patience and attention. So I can't wait to see what this one is all about. It's going to be a lot of fun, just to let you know. Okay. Perez is from Vintage. Make game time, brain time. Puzzlet, along with Dash, the robot, is an interactive hands-on gaming system that is used to focus on coding to build developmental, digital, and intrinsic skills. Okay, so let's go to Denise Snyder. Denise is from Clark. Falling Towers, a historical lesson. Falling Towers by Jewel Parker Rhodes offers educators a way to discuss the events of September 11th from a historical and social perspective, including themes of community, diversity, and socioeconomic differences. So that one I really want to do. Okay, Michelle Stand is from Poland. Super sensational sensory walk. Using the sensory band movements for students to help regulate their emotions, calm, and become more focused. And Allison Castle from Clark, far-reaching fiction for young adults. Adding to and updating my classroom library to fit with the needs of my current and future students will foster independent readers who are successful in all aspects of life. Better readers, better thinkers. And in her branch, she's updating her library because you know when new books come out, those are the ones that interest kids the most. So in reading her list, I hope her kids really will enjoy that. Thank you so much, Board, for allowing us to honor the people that have gotten grants.
Thank you. Those of you that have received grants this evening, we always like to take a picture, so head out there.
I like that. Yeah, here again. The school board member left behind it.
What?
We took on, we'd never leave him again standing there. And no school board left behind it.
All right, great. All right, moving on to our Director of Human Resources, Terry Mucha.
Thank you very much. Good evening. We're recommending that the following be approved: class appointments, resignations, transfers, and professional leaves.
All right, do I hear a motion?
So moved.
Okay, Mr. Marshall with the motion. I will second that motion. Any comments or questions about those personnel recommendations? Okay.
I have some questions, but not about this list, but can I ask it now? Sure, why not? So I noticed on either this document or maybe it was last month, the term is used from termination to inactive. Can you explain what that
Well,
means?
termination was what we put on RDS. That's how RDS puts you in there when you are no longer employed. And during one of the last meetings, you asked, you didn't like that word.
Right.
And so we just changed the word on there.
To inactive. Okay.
Nice, thank you.
Okay.
Okay.
All right.
Would that be it?
I was, and I don't mean to put you on the spot, but do you have any information on the substitute for Mr. Brannick?
Yes, we do, actually. He's been in there, this is his second full day, not counting the day that he was going in there to observe. And we did have some of the kids from Auto Shop go up to Mr. Beck at lunchtime and ask if he could stay the rest of the time because they were really enjoying him in there. They got started today on some things that they had not done previously, like they were working on alignment, I think, and the kids reported that they were enjoying that part of it. So we're seeing some progress in the kids getting back into the shop, as reported to Mr. Beck today.
And you said this is how many days he's been there?
Well, Thursday he observed and Friday and today.
Okay, and then,
This is the temporary person, correct?
Yes.
Until, okay.
Yes.
and then his certification is,
He has 8 of those certifications.
was ASE?
Mhm.
ASE.
And, you know, in that area, you can also qualify under a workplace specialist and with so many hours in the field as approved by the IDOE.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Terry.
Mhm.
All right, moving on to our Director of Primary Education, Teresa Schoen.
Thank you. My first item is to seek your approval of the professional leave requests that were in your board packet and also a revision.
So moved.
We have a motion from Mr. Marshall. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a second from Ms. Seuss. All right, any comments or questions regarding those professional leave requests? Okay, all those
Oh,
in
no,
favor?
wait, I have a question. I have a question about that Bibby school going to Washington DC. How exciting is that? Enjoy, that will be a fun trip to have together. So, nice work.
Okay. All right, let's take a vote on that. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion passes.
Thank you. And my last item is to share the results of the spring 2018 ISTEP. I sent an email with the chart on it, in it on Friday, and also gave you some bullet points that you asked for. Overall, you can see that the number of students passing dropped, and this was in line with the drop that school corporations across the state saw. The feedback that I received from most teachers was that students did not have enough time to complete the test. They felt that students were doing well on it, but just ran out of time. Asking students to complete items in such a short amount of time goes against what we've been working on with students. Our teachers and math coaches have been working hard to make changes in their instruction. In math, we're asking students to use reasoning strategies. And in math, we ask them to reread sections of text and go back in to find evidence to support their answers. All of those things take time, and when they have a short amount of time to do it, that will certainly affect our scores. The new iLearn test that starts next year is on time, so I think that supports the state believing that students should be able to complete their work without being timed. As we do every year, now that we have the final results, we'll be disaggregating the data and looking for areas of improvement. Although, since this is the last year of ISTEP, we will focus more of our attention looking at the new iLearn blueprints and the item specifications to be prepared for the spring.
How long have we been working with the math coaches and the instructional? How long have they been in place? Sharon Rack, how long has she been here?
Sharon Rack, we've had her 2 years. 2 years, yes. And the math coach is the same.
And what is your assessment? You said the teachers felt it was a time. What's your assessment of why we keep dropping?
Well, first up, maybe I should clarify, this is the first year that we've dropped.
That's what I meant, I'm sorry, for this year, where we're dropping,
So-
why is this, why do you think? I'm
I
just
believe
curious.
that it is a time factor.
That's
Our
it?
kids are doing just what we have been working with them on. They draw pictures, they reason it out for their writing, they do the planning, and that takes time. And I worked with the curriculum committees, and that is the consensus, that it just is a time factor.
So we should see an improvement next year then when the time has changed?
Well, I would say the second year, because iLearn's gonna look considerably different than iStep, so you always have that factor that we really, we have test items that they can go in and experience the new platform, but doing 2 questions on a new platform is not really going to prepare you for doing that test. So, do I think that scores will go up? I'm not gonna promise anything. Second year, we'll talk.
So what is the difference between the iStep and the iLearn from what you've learned at conferences you've been
Well,
at?
first of all, it's on time, so that's an
Right,
improvement.
right.
It is computer adaptive within the grade level standards, so we should receive more precise information about where a student is performing. The platform looks completely different than what iStep looks like. One's Pearson, one is the American Institute for Research, so that is the difference.
Same standards are tested.
Same standards are tested.
Different
yes.
process to test them, or?
Well, because it's computer adaptive, that is a difference, you know.
So then what you mean by that is that it's going to zero in on each individual person's weak area?
Or strength.
Similar to the old GRE that most of us took when we went to grad school. The graduation.
So it's more similar to that and not the MAP where it's an adaptive test to see how much they grow
GRE
each year?
the GRE is an adaptive test. You do
I
a
never
math
took the
problem,
GRE, I
you take a harder, and then pretty soon the problems get too hard for you. You drop it down and it eventually settles. That's your ability level.
And so then how will they report the scores? Because everybody's going to be so unique and different. Do
Well,
they know?
instead of the 3 reporting categories, next year we will have 4. So, you know, we had pass, did not pass, and pass plus. Now, Sarah, help me out, approaching.
Approaching is the new one that they've
Right.
added.
Approaching.
And so what it's going to look like exactly, we haven't gotten that information, but we do know it is grade level standards. We'll have more precise information, and we will have those 4 reporting categories.
Okay.
And though the first year will require some extra time for them to do cut score setting, by the second year, they've guaranteed that we'll have the results from the test within 12 days of when the student takes the test.
Really?
I think this gives us much more time to look at it.
Do we have the capability, or do we have some sort of software or something that is adaptive for students to use? Do we have anything like that right now where they can practice with anything that's adaptive, or not so much?
At the elementary, Dreambox, which is a math program that we use, it is computer adapted, but the platform doesn't look the same as what I've seen for the iLearn. But it does. They answer questions wrong, and it bumps them down. They answer questions right, and at some point, they hit the ceiling where they can't continue any further.
Will there still be science and social studies and writing?
Writing will be part of the language arts.
Okay.
There will be science and social studies. Science and social studies will not be computer adapted, at least for next year.
But everything will be online then?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Teresa. All right, moving on to our Director of Secondary Education, Sarah Castaneda.
Thank you. For my first item, I'm going to piggyback on the iStep results that Teresa presented. You received a chart in your board packet that was sent out. The state average, if you look at the results at the secondary level, decreased in every grade level except for some small gains made in 8th grade in language arts and math. As a school corporation, we were actually very happy to see growth at all 3 middle schools and in most of our grade levels. We saw some significant increases in the 7th and 8th grade results in language arts. We also saw increases in almost every grade level in math, which is wonderful. It's been a couple of years since I was able to present a chart to you with a lot of green on there showing all the growth. At the high school level, we grew a little bit in our language arts score. However, in our math score, we did drop. This year was the first year that the high school took the iStep Math Applied Skills portion online. That's the first part of the test that they take. Another thing that impacted the scores was that the state gave us guidance in January that we could no longer use handheld calculators. If you remember, we had a situation in our district with one of the middle schools where calculators had been allowed on a non-calculator portion of the test. And so that's why the state made that decision.
Is that for all schools now, or just ours?
For all schools, but they gave that information to us in January of last year, and we take the first part of the test in February. At the middle school level, the calculator that they used was not a very complicated one, but at the high school level, it's the TI-84 Plus, and not all of our kids have graphing calculator experience, so that was a little bit overwhelming. We did try to incorporate it before the test, but with just about 6 weeks to go, it was a little hard for that first portion of the assessment to fit in. Also at the high school level, we've been looking a great deal at our master schedule. When I brought you class sizes probably about a month or two ago, we showed you that the algebra and geometry class sizes were lower, and that was done with intention, so that way we can keep a dedicated team of teachers there and a small group of students for them to work with. Our high school math department chair, remember, is on a part-time schedule. She's only able to coach half the time, and then she teaches half the time. And with those half days, she then is focusing her attention on the algebra and geometry classes. So we're trying to take a good look at those courses and make sure they have the support that they need.
Can I ask a question there?
Sure.
You said that the class sizes are smaller in the algebra and geometry, correct?
Yes.
But yet 10th grade dropped 10%?
I meant they are for this year. For last year, it was not. And so having got these results unofficially over the summer, we did make sure that that was a point of emphasis when we were creating this year's master schedule to try to address it. But last year, that was not the case.
Gotcha. Okay, thank you.
And with iStep, though, iLearn will be taking over at the middle school level, and we've already started to look through those blueprints, look at the computer adaptive type of test and things like that. Do remember at the high school, because the cohort started with iStep, they are going to finish out everyone from our current freshmen on up with the iStep test at the high school. And so that remains a bit of a moving target for us. I think the reason they created the graduation pathways is because they knew that kids are getting stuck in this cycle of retesting, and that other school districts are seeing results similar to ours that really aren't reflective of what those students are capable of. But because the cohorts started that way, that's the way they want them to finish with the iStep assessment. So grades 3 through 8 will switch over to iLearn, but the high school for math and language arts will continue to use iStep until this freshman group is through.
All right, say that again, slow down, would you please?
So the high school is keeping iStep
iStep.
until
Okay.
this freshman group goes all the way through.
Okay.
Because that was the assessment that was in place when they started high school.
What happens at the middle school then?
At the middle school, they're switching over to the iLearn that Teresa
Okay.
described, which is the computer adaptive assessment.
Okay.
So next year's freshmen will be iLearn?
Next year's freshmen are in the pathways, so they will have the opportunity to demonstrate post-secondary competencies with either the SAT, ACT.
Gotcha, they don't have to do iStep, is what you're
Correct.
saying. Sorry, thank you very much.
And we have attended several sessions on graduation pathways. I will bring that to you here shortly.
Thank you.
We can't wait. Yeah.
There's
Just,
still a problem with using the SAT or ACT for all
Right.
students, when everybody isn't preparing to take a college weed-out test.
Correct.
So it's problematic from the start.
Thank you.
You're welcome. For my second item, I am seeking your approval for the professional leave request as presented.
Do we have a motion from Mr. Marshall? Do we have a second?
second.
We have a second from Ms. Suze. All right, any comments or questions regarding those leave requests? Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. No.
I have a question, but I think there's a state cross-country meet, and one of the coaches asked for a release. Do you know who is in the state cross-country competition?
Semi-states this week first.
Semi-states first. The
But-
girls, right?
They go to New Prairie this week.
Yes.
So they haven't
Okay,
made it to state.
so it's the
Sometimes
whole
they
group.
put them in anticipation of where they're going to place it.
I see.
Because
Okay,
we won't have a board meeting before
just
then.
want to stay on top of the good things going on. Thank you.
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes.
And then for my last item, I am seeking your approval for the field trip requests as presented.
Move to approve.
All right, there's a motion from Ms. Suze, and I shall second that motion. Any comments or questions regarding those field trip requests?
I do have a question, and I really don't know Chicagoland, so, but I see that there is a request to go to the Pilsen neighborhood.
Yes.
Is that an okay place for our students to go?
It is. Pilsen is a fabulous artistic community that many of the local area schools take their Spanish students to because there's so much cultural art, museums, displays there, especially around this time of year with the Day of the Dead themes and things like that.
I see. Okay. All right. Very good. Oh, did you motion?
There's a motion, and I second that motion, so all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Thank you, Sarah.
Thank you.
We'll move on to our Director of Facilities, Bill Ledger.
Thank you, Mr. Baxell. I just have 3 items to update the board on tonight. The Town of Dyer Water Board, Bibbage Water Main Improvement, they are pretty much substantially complete with that project. They just have some testing to do, and they placed all the black dirt on site, and they will be seeding here in the next 2 weeks whenever the weather's conducive. But other than that, they're pretty well done over there. Any questions on that?
Any questions on that?
No, thank you.
My next item is to update you on the NIPSCO electric upgrade in the Holman area. Last weekend they did run the new wire. They put the conduit in a couple weekends ago before that, and they're all set to go ahead and remove the old wire and terminate the new wire, but that's going to be conducive on their crews getting back from hurricane help and support in the panhandle of Florida. So we're kind of tentatively on possibly this Saturday, but he's not real sure because they've lost a lot of crews to the hurricane relief. So I will keep Mrs. Tucker informed, but it should only be an outage of about 2 to 3 hours and pretty simple at this point, just get the crews on site to do it.
Okay.
Last update is the maintenance building, just to give you a brief update. We finished all the foundations. The building shell was delivered. We have 95% of the exterior framing done. We set trusses today. Tomorrow they'll go ahead and finish up framing some support for the trusses, and we'll start sheeting after lunch tomorrow, and we hope to have at least dried in with felt paper by the weekend, and next week we'll start some underground plumbing and electric.
Thank you, Bill.
Thank you.
All right, any comments or questions for Bill?
No, I'm happy to see that go up and see the eyesore go down, so appreciate that.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, moving on to our Director of Business Services, Rob James.
Thank you, Mr. Baxell. My first time to seek your approval on the donations that were presented in your board packet.
Move to approve.
We have a motion from Ms. Seuss. Do we have a second?
I'd like to second that.
Okay, we have a second from Mr. Marshall. Any comments or questions regarding those donations? Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes.
Thank you. And my second item that I just want to inform the board about is our ADM update. Last meeting it came up with what our ADM count was looking at, and so we prepared a chart, and I put that in your board packet of where we are. In comparison, we have each school listed, and in comparison to the numbers from last fall. And if you look in the bottom right-hand corner, you will see that we are up 55 students this year. As I noted last year, this is the first year in my tenure here that we've actually gained students. And so we are happy with that. It'll bring more dollars into the district. And we have some schools that are up, some schools that are down, but overall we're 55 up. So any questions there?
Do you know if, are there residency checks that are done? Are these all officially our students?
These are all officially our kids who are in our buildings and
they enroll,
in seats.
and
they enroll, they provided documentation.
I know the game. I just want to make sure that we're following through and making sure that they really are our residents.
I will say that, as I kind of described, if more than one school district claims the same student, then you have to work that out. So we have no conflicts. There are no other school districts claiming any of these students.
Okay. And then I would have a question, I guess, for our directors, knowing that the numbers are large at Protzman and Coling and Homan. Taylor and Clark, have you adjusted assignments so that there's more help there for the administrative teams?
As far as deans?
Or as far as aides or teachers?
Whatever, just what kind of
Well,
adjustments have you made?
As it got closer to the beginning of the school year and we saw the kindergarten grow in some of the areas, we did talk to the teachers and talk to the principals and ask, are you looking at, you'd like another teacher, or are you looking at that you would like an aide to help out in the kindergarten classes? And it was unanimously, it was so close to the beginning of the school year that they would prefer to have paraprofessionals in there to help them.
Right.
So we did get those for the higher kindergarten classes.
Okay. Colleen and Pratzman, is there any extra help being given to the administrative?
They've got a full-time dean at the two big elementaries this year.
Okay, and then
5 days.
is that the same at Clark and Taylor?
Taylor
Is there
actually
extra help there?
Taylor's actually down 4 students, and Clark is down 40.
40, yeah.
40.
Yes.
No, but I'm comparing it to Grimmer, which is quite a bit lower.
Yes, they have more days of deans at the other 2 schools.
They have more deans and help at Clark and Grimmer? Okay. Or Clark and Taylor. I'm sorry. Okay,
Thank you, Mr. James.
thank you.
Thank you, that's all I have.
That's all you have? All right, thank you. Now we're moving on to our public comment section of the meeting this evening. We have 3 people signed up for public comments. And the first gentleman is Daniel Rising.
My name is Daniel Rising. I live at 14902 93rd Avenue, Dyer, Indiana, zip code 46311. I wanted to address the board specifically tonight as I was unable to make the vote for the emergency meeting on Saturday morning, which I do feel could have been handled tonight. And if it was such an emergency, I feel that that meeting should have been called well before it was. I would also like to ask if some statements that have been given to the Times from administrators would be looked at in a second light now that no official charges will be levied and no firearm can be proven to have been anywhere, so the speculation in the papers borderlines defamation. Also, in the light of the policies that we were made aware of that Mr. Brannick has claimed to have been in violation of, there was an incident where bay doors were left open with administrators in the auto shop for a period extending 20 minutes or more. I have video I can show the board if they would like to see them before I leave tonight, and I have students that were in that class that can attest to it. So if the policy is being upheld by one standard, it needs to be upheld by all. So those administrators need to be reprimanded for that policy failing. And then also I would like to know what, after the incident we had and then the other incident that brought up shortly thereafter, which I won't go into because it's not out there completely yet, but I am aware of it. Why has there been no comprehensive security analysis done from somebody outside of this area? School safety is something that is very serious anymore. That is what I was told when I addressed the board the first time. That is what everybody in this room was told before. If this is a very serious situation, and I heard all kinds of things about funding and numbers, and none of that makes sense to me. I'm a heavy equipment operator. Budgets and spreadsheets don't make sense to me. What makes sense to me is having professionals look at things from a non-biased point of view. And there are programs in place that will not cost the board or the district a single penny to have this reviewed, to have an outside force come in and examine every school independently and give them specific recommendations on the safety of those schools and what can be done to improve them. If the board would like that information, I have emailed all of you. You all have access to my phone number, or you can speak to me afterwards, and I would happily give all that information over to you. Also, I would like to see if the motion that was put forth Saturday morning to extend the retirement to the end of the school year, since it was not up for discussion on Saturday, because that's not what we were in session for, will be brought up again tonight so an actual discussion can be had about it. And I would like to thank Mr. Marshall for being one of the only board members that actually wanted to hear the arguments. I watched the entire board meeting and he wanted to at least listen to both sides before a vote was had. I appreciate the 2 board members that put it forward, but now he's not here and the retirement was accepted for a policy that really can't have been violated if there was no threat, because an angry individual isn't a threat and a firearm can't be proved. So if the board is gonna render punishment and accept a retirement policy on something that can't be proved, I feel that it needs to be reviewed in the new light of no police report and no name officially given, but has been released. So I think that those things should be taken into account with a revote on Mr. Brannick's retirement if the board would humble us to revisit it. Thank you.
Thank you, Dan.
Mr. Back, so I'd like to respond to a couple of things that Daniel has shared with us tonight. First, the state of Indiana is performing audits on all 10 of our buildings, and that should be starting sometime later this month.
Wait, excuse me,
The
safety
state of
audit?
Indiana
Safety audits?
are doing safety audits at all 10 buildings. The state of Indiana. The Department of Ed in conjunction with some hired consultants. Okay, then maybe we need more. And then I have to share.
Brush me off with safety like that. I had an actual conversation with you. Please do not disrespect me in that way, as I did not you tonight. You just brushed me off with safety. Those are not security professionals. Those are not.
They are, sir. You don't even know who they are, so how can you judge them?
Daniel,
Okay?
Daniel, allow me
Now,
to rebut.
I have to
Allow
tell the
rebut.
public tonight that I cannot stand for this revisionist history that there was no gun at the auto shop on September 21st. So I'm going to read into the record an exchange of text between me and Dr. Malco on September 22nd at 2:12 p.m. Mr. Baracco says, "Did you see anything threatening at auto shop yesterday when you stopped by?" Janice Malco responds, "Well, I saw a gentleman roll up in a vehicle, and he walks into the counter where Denny and I were talking. I thought it was a former student coming to visit, and then he started talking about one of the LC students driving at a high rate of speed down 79th, where his 5-year-old was. I went to leave, and I tried to settle the young boys down." I lost my place. "And explained to them that it was Mr. Brannick's responsibility to handle it, not theirs. The gentleman told Mr. Brannick that the police were on their way, and so was the young man's mother. Denny called me later and told me when the gentleman walked into the shop area, he had a gun on his body. I did not see it. And Denny also told me police and parent never did arrive. Larry, Denny told a different story to Sean and did not call our afternoon security. I was contacted by an auto student's parent. Not good. Janice, ugh, what did he tell? Larry, that nothing happened. Janice, true in a sense, because nothing did happen. Gentleman left, and police and parent never did show up. Larry, but if he saw a gun, why did he not call the police or administration? And why didn't you let me know of this incident? I was in the office until 5. Dr. Malco, I have no idea. I didn't know there was a gun. I tried to stay out of affairs and follow the chain of command. You've been very clear about that to me, Larry, so I try to abide by your expectations. Larry, Janice, come on. You tell me about a coach wearing a hat, but not about a community member bringing a gun to the auto shop. Larry, I did not see a gun. I responded, but Dennis told you he did. So let's please not try to revise history, guys. And I had very many parents call me and tell me.
Bring your voice down, sir. You don't need to raise your voice at our community members.
It's okay.
You're right.
They're calming down. They're
That's
calming down.
fine.
Yeah.
And such is in the court not considered admissible evidence. There cannot be a proven, don't laugh at me.
I'm not laughing at you.
There cannot be a proven firearm because the Lake County prosecutor is not bringing firearms charges.
And shame on our community for putting pressure on young people to recant their initial versions, which include several parents talking to me on Monday morning, telling me, don't do a weak investigation here. My kid saw it. What he knows was a gun. My kid knows guns. It was a gun. And I'm not gonna share any of that because I don't want any students laid out by having their identity known. But it wasn't just one email. There was several calls.
Okay, Daniel, do you have anything else to add?
I would like to know if the board will look into something outside of the state of Indiana.
I'd like to call upon our second person that is signed up this evening to speak. Terry Gosnell?
Hi, my name is Terry Gosnell. I live at 502 Spivak in Cherville, Indiana. Some of the things that Dan had said, I have the same opinion on, but as a parent and having a child in the auto program, I have a few questions, as in where are we going? Are we going to be following Brannick's curriculum that he already has? Once Mr. Smith, that's in there, what, for 10 days, 15 days, once he's gone, who's going to be taking the place? Is it permanent? Have we found, I know you said that you were interviewing, have we found someone to replace permanently? Are our kids going to be able to get their certifications? I know Andy Brasher from Universal Technical Institute, he actually contacted me again today, said that he's left another message with you guys. He can't get a hold of administration, but I've given you a letter from him. You have his information. Are we going to have a meeting for the parents with the auto kids? I mean, right now, it's just board meetings, but what's going on? What are we doing? So I don't know if you guys can answer any of those questions.
Can I answer the first part of the question for you? Mm-hmm. We did, after the board meeting, it had been listed on our website as a temporary auto, and so we couldn't put it. We probably didn't get quite as many applications as we could have because it was temporary. We did get 5 in with the temporary, but on Monday we took off temporary and we listed it as just a full-time auto person. Mm-hmm. We hope to get in a few more. We also hope to start interviews this week and finish up next week so we can get those in just as quickly as possible.
How long is the interview process?
Out by the state.
How long is the interview process usually? Because I know with most jobs it's drug testing, background checks.
Pretty fast on the background checks. We can get started on those pretty quickly as soon as we can find a good, solid applicant that will be good for our students. Okay. And we're getting more in every day, which is hopeful.
Okay. All right, that's really all that I have to say. I mean, I'm trying not to be emotional and get into the emotional side of it. I still say shame on you who didn't vote for Brannick to finish at least the school year with these kids. It's the kids that's who should be first here. And I know that the decision has devastated quite a few of them. So, thank you.
Thank you, Terry. Moving on, we have one more gentleman signed up to speak this evening. Carlos, is that Sanchez? Did I say it correctly, the last name, Sanchez?
My name is Ricardo Sanchez, 502 Spivak Drive. Like what Danny said, if everybody's going to be held accountable, the principal, assistant principals were in the auto shop with overhead door, both overhead doors, I believe, actually, open, wide open. Principal back turned towards the door that was open on the phone. I too have video of it. So I think if Brannick is going to be thrown on the bus by you guys, or majority of you guys, then I think, like Danny said, everybody else should be. My question to you guys is, what are you going to say to us? How do you guys feel? Do you guys feel any compassion? Do you, Morocco? Do you, Boxo, whoever else voted to have Brannick out by November 1st? What's the rush? What is the rush? Why does he need to leave so fast? Why can't he finish out the year? Is it because of safety? I'll tell you this much, I don't feel any safer than what happened before. You guys haven't done anything since what happened. You guys haven't improved any safety in the shop. I don't see no sensors. I don't see anybody working on sensors. I don't see anything. So
Bill, I have to tell you what the status is.
The sensors have been ordered and the parts should be in today or tomorrow, and they're scheduled to be out Thursday.
Okay. Can you show that to us?
They'll be out Thursday.
Can you show me that you ordered them though? Us?
Sure, why not? There's nothing to hide.
Open a stop, somebody else will come in, the doors will wide open, for those like 2 or 3 days, the doors will wide open, open a stop, somebody else will come in and shop. When, a lot of administrators like.
No, I'm
What do you
sorry,
have to
sir.
say?
I mean, you did not sign up to speak, and you're gonna start. No, I mean, we're not gonna get into this yelling match that we had in the last board meeting. So if I made comments at the beginning that if you wanted to speak at this board meeting, please sign up at the back. There was 3 people that signed up. Okay, thank you. Continue, sir.
Thank you. Also, I do feel that why did the meeting that you guys made the decision on Saturday have to be done on Saturday in such a fast, you didn't even let anybody know, what, it was like 2 days before, a day before, you let the public know that there was gonna be a board meeting? Was that because you don't want people to show up? Because that's what we think, that's how it looks to the public. You know, I mean, you guys look so bad on this. A majority of you guys do. You know, I mean, maybe you don't care. I feel, and I think everybody else feels, that you don't care. I mean, the other day, last Friday, me and a bunch of other auto kids, we were all in the office talking to Mr. Bagley, and all the counselors were in there, and he said that the counselors will be meeting with you guys. Why does he have to tell that to us? Why don't they just do it because they care? Because they don't. They don't care. And they still haven't called me down. I don't think they called any of you guys down. Yeah, see? So, I mean, why don't you guys care? Do you? I don't think so. I really don't.
We do care, sir, we care about the safety of our students, and we care about all of our teachers.
Why can't you show me that you ordered the parts? You said that you ordered the sensors. Is there a bill made out that showing proof that you made it?
It's a Lake Central purchase order to Try Electronics.
Okay, well, can you show me? I don't know you, you don't know me.
I don't have it on me.
I don't think he knew we had.
We'll show it to you tomorrow.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you
We'll
want.
send a copy down to Mr. Bagley to show to you.
Okay,
If you want a copy, you can easily access a copy by tomorrow.
okay, that's cool.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ricardo. All right, moving on to our board comments and consideration of future agenda items. I'd start with Mr. Marshall.
At this time, I have nothing to say.
Okay. Dr. Malco.
Well, I do, and especially in light of the fact that Dr. Morocco read the text messaging. I want everyone to know that I am under the care of a doctor for concussion and the symptoms. Anyway, I'm not getting into it, but I will tell you what happened that day. 3 components of it. The overhead door is open. There's something that goes on here. I have no idea what it is. Mr. Brannick and I are right here over by the table where you get your schedule made. This gentleman walks in. He was not irate. I repeat, he was not irate. I even looked at him and I said, "Oh my, you must be one of Mr. Brannick's former students." He goes, "No, I want to talk to you about a kid that's hot rodding over by my neighborhood." That's when Mr. Brannick and I both turned and left. And now I'm out in the parking lot. Not once did Mr. Brannick or myself see a gun. Not once did we see a gun. Students came and said, "We think we see the shape of a gun." I said, "Then you need to report that," which I'm assuming they did. But I want to, I'm really upset about the false statements that are in the papers. It just irritates me to no end. And I'm also upset, and thanks for settling me down, as to why I cannot get a copy of the St. John Police Report, Chief, when everybody else can get it.
Our copy got thrown away.
I'm sorry? I'm sorry? Well, but one of our board members had it.
We had it on Saturday.
Pardon me?
Which one and where did they get it?
I had a copy of the police report.
Where'd you get the copy of the police report?
I-
Maybe we should talk about that after the meeting.
But okay.
Well, this is why, because the answers that he gives me is gonna result in an internal investigation of the police department that could cause discipline to somebody in the police department, and this is not the place to discuss that.
Yeah, but the people of your community deserve to know, no?
No.
Investigations.
But wait, we said that. We said we couldn't make a decision until their investigation is complete. How did you make a decision if their investigation is not complete?
You can bring that up here.
Why did we get arrested and charged? These are my kids. Everyone here, including my son, are my kids.
Okay, done.
Like the censors, they're not going to do crap when someone coming in the building and shooting everyone else. If they're going to.
Yeah, please come up front.
The first thing I want to do as a person, not necessarily as the police chief, the first thing I want to do is praise all of you. And I praise all of you because you have something in you from Mr. Brannick that brought you to a level to come forward and stand up for Mr. Brannick. I'm sure all of us adults have someone in your life that caused you to be who you are today. I have 3 teachers like that. Probably the person that gets the least amount of credit for what they've done and the influence they've had on people are teachers. And I would assume that most of you would have never thought that you would find yourself in a position to come into a huge gathering like this in front of cameras, in front of elected officials and teachers, school board members, police department members. You would never thought that you would come up here and speak on behalf of somebody. You deserve praise for that. And Mr. Brannick, from all the things I've heard from all of you over the last couple weeks, is an individual that has an innate ability to connect with his students, or else you wouldn't have all come in to stand up on his behalf. You should all be very proud of yourselves. And you should be proud for the relationship you had with Mr. Brannick. My responsibility as the police chief is not what happens to him as a teacher. My responsibility is the criminal investigation. And I've been doing this job for almost 35 years. And I have never, in all the homicides, burglaries, robberies, sexual assaults, all the different cases that I've been involved in over my 33 years in law enforcement, I have never, ever had such a difficult time, or my officers have never had this much of a difficult time investigating an incident. This is a criminal event. And the person that strongly needs to be held accountable for his actions is the individual that came to your classroom that day. Did we interview a bunch of the people that were there? Absolutely. Do we have statements from those witnesses that saw what happened firsthand? Not people that think they know what happened based on somebody they talked to or something they heard from somebody else or something they read in the newspaper or something they heard on the internet. Excuse me, I'm speaking this time. Show me a little respect. Thank you. The individuals we talked to were there and witnessed what took place. And of course, we found the offender, and we talked to him. And we've reviewed this case with the prosecutor's office. And usually, the way I describe a criminal investigation is like that game we used to play as kids, where little puzzle pieces pop up, and you're trying to show the picture to a judge or a jury so that they could make a proper decision on the prosecution of that case. Is the person guilty or not guilty? Is it a clear picture or a fuzzy one? And unfortunately, in the process of trying to support this wonderful man that you say has taught you over the last 45 years, I mean, for those of you who are old enough, that picture has become blurred. Because inadvertently, to protect him, which is something that I am not part of, you have caused that picture to change. Some of you. I heard several of you come up and say, Mr. Baranek made me the man I am today. I'm sure Mr. Baranek didn't want you to alter your witness statement so that the individual that caused this problem, yes, that two-time convicted felon, cannot be prosecuted or will be prosecuted at a lesser degree because of that loyalty to your teacher. I'm sure Mr. Baranek would expect you to be honest and forthcoming, and I'm not saying anybody's lying. I'm saying they're saying things to try to protect their teacher. I got calls from parents when this first started, so upset. There's what, 10,000 students in your school, in our school corporation? This is about all 10,000. The decisions that are made in the prosecution that takes place against this offender will affect other incidents that happen down the road. If he is not held accountable for the actions he took, other people somewhere else are going to hear about it, and there's other things that are going to happen, like they have throughout our country. It's extremely dangerous when somebody comes into a classroom exhibiting that type of behavior. And I'm sure all of you want that person held accountable for what he did. He's not some person that did something for the first time. And yes, there's a lot of facts that I know and a lot of facts that the administration of the school district knows that you don't know. Things that aren't being said because they have to be held confidential. To be honest with you, for the protection, the human resource protection of Mr. Baranek in some cases. And the protection, unfortunately, of the offender that hasn't been charged yet. If somebody asks me a question, I will tell you either the answer or that I can't answer it because it may impact something else. Once it's all done, all questions will be answered because the affidavit, the sworn statement that was brought to the prosecutor's office will be released. The police reports will be released. The phone records of the phone calls that were or were not made from that classroom will be released, and you'll know who was called and who wasn't. But until that time, we have to protect the dignity of the individuals involved, even if they're at fault. Many people have made a lot of assumptions. Somebody has accused me of leaving opinions in my press release. The main opinion I put into my press release was it is honorable to stand up for a teacher or respected adult. Because there were several of the people that were witnesses, students, that were being berated by their fellow students because they came forward and told the truth. So I wanted to make sure they knew, and you all know, what I said when I started talking today. It is very honorable for you to come forward and speak on his behalf. It is. And I was so thankful that first meeting, all the statements that were made were how wonderful Mr. Baranek is, how he connected with me, how he taught me a job, and how I now have a job because of him. That's wonderful. And thankfully, nobody said any contradictory statements, I don't think, during that first meeting related to the events that took place. Because it's not about that. Most of all the people that spoke didn't know anything about the details of that event, but they knew Mr. Brannick was a good teacher. The second part of that opinion was everybody's accountable for their actions or inactions. So all of you who are being berated know it's okay that you were honest and came forward and told the truth and witnessed what you witnessed. You should not have been subject to what took place. Yes, we talked to the offender, and I have a statement from the offender, which I cannot share with you because the case is not concluded yet, because he has legal rights. And yes, if somebody gave somebody a police report that shouldn't have, I will have to do an internal investigation, and I will have to find out why that happened, and I will have to discipline that person. It would not be fair for me to talk about that in public until that was resolved. That's a human resources thing. That's a personnel file thing. That's not right for me to discuss. But I will look into it and find out what happened. There are details you don't know. If you don't know them firsthand, Facebook is not the place to air your stuff. Does anybody have any questions for me?
No, I appreciate your explanation as to why I could not get a report and other people could. So I appreciate knowing that.
Well, I don't know the answer to that question yet.
Well, but at least you're going to be on it. I appreciate that because, well, never mind. Thank you.
I guess my
Yes.
question.
Can I have a discussion? Is that okay?
No, yeah, I was just asking a question, so you asked me. That was rude.
In your piece, in your statement that was released, that was quoted for the honorable of the individuals that came forward, and then the loyalty and standing up to strength and that. But okay, it's not an opinion, but the speculation that you made in that piece, not talking about the honorable individuals that came forward, the direct speculation in your quote that someone could have been shot is what was plastered over the newspapers. Nobody in the newspapers talked about how you said it was honorable that they came through, and then you guys were looking into it. That direct speculation in, as you said, today's dangerous environment is what was plastered, and is what turned this very quickly into a downhill situation with speculation on what could have or would have happened. That was the issue that I had with that statement.
Okay. Did you talk to any of the students that were present and find out what that individual said when he came in? Okay. I'm not giving you credit for one way or the other, but I'm saying there was a statement made that would be supported by that.
And there were also statements made that would not be supported by that. That would not support that statement. All I'm saying is you didn't say that somebody could not have been shot. You said that somebody could have been shot.
Well, they weren't, right? So they could have been.
Yes.
So they weren't, but they could have been.
No, they could have been, yes.
Correct.
But I can go outside and I could get into a car accident.
Or you could not.
Or I could not.
Correct.
But that speculation that was used as a quote from you, because it was a public document at that point that the police department had put out, is what put the bad taste before your investigation was completed or the board's investigation was completed. And you just put out the fact that there was an investigation ongoing and you guys are looking into it and the board is looking into it, and left it at that, you wouldn't have given them headlines and given certain other people across the stand on it. But that is what the reporters got their hands on, that's what they ran with.
Okay. We'll have to agree to disagree because that was based on a statement that was made.
Yes, but there were no statements in the other direction that were made that were added to yours. Because
Well,
they were implied because there wasn't an incident.
Well, nobody came in and said, well, I'm not going to get into the statement until the reports are released.
Do you have a timeline on that at this time, sir?
I do not. Unfortunately, the prosecutor's office is extremely frustrated with this process because of the delay in the reporting and the delay in the situation. That's what's caused this problem.
Thank you, Chief.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Thank you, Chief.
You're welcome.
you would like
May I
to.
ask my question now, sir?
Sir, she's got a question.
So you said the investigation is not complete yet, correct?
Correct.
Okay. The other thing was, I've also read the police report, so I just thought I'd let you know that as well.
Okay, did you get it from somebody, from the
I
police
did.
department?
No, from someone up here.
Okay, thank you.
Really?
I did. Just letting you know. I'll be happy to let you know.
Do you
I'm
have
not
any-
gonna throw anyone under the bus though, because that's not how I roll.
Do you have any comments besides that?
I do. If the investigation is still ongoing, my question is then, we were told as a board that the school was doing an investigation and that the town was doing an investigation, that we couldn't take any action until the investigation was complete. But yet in our meeting, we were told that the school didn't do as much of an investigation because they're letting the town do the investigation, but now the town's not done with the investigation, so how do we take a vote? How do we take a vote? I'm confused. I understand your investigation, but this was what I was
Well,
told, and
they're
I'm
parallel
confused.
investigations, they're not the same investigation. So, no.
So, and I
They're not the
understand
same
what you're
length,
saying.
young man.
But you said that you said that you didn't talk to kids because you didn't want to put them under anything else, and your investigation was complete. But then you said we had to wait for the other investigation to be complete to take care of everything, and now I'm confused how we took a vote if the
We
investigation
took
was
a
not
vote
complete.
after we spent a couple hours in executive session where we shared all the information we had with you.
You said
as a
the
board.
investigation was complete. It's
Our
not.
investigation was, our school personnel investigation
But you said you
was.
didn't, you said that you didn't talk to anybody for your investigation.
Oh, I didn't say that.
I'm confused.
I didn't say that. We had plenty of
Okay.
information.
All right, then
You
that's
just-
why, that's all I wanted cleared up. Okay.
I think he's speaking of our internal personnel investigation. He's speaking of the criminal.
That's why I wanted to know the difference between the two. I thought it was the same thing. I'm just
Well,
asking questions.
I think the
That's my
confusing
job
part
as an
on that
elected
would have
official.
been that the first day of interviews, they were going on at the same time,
Okay, thank you.
and then they diverged.
Second question, when will the meeting be for parents? Because it is not fair, the parents don't know what's going on. We need something, sort of communication out there. I want to know when these parents are going to be communicated with and given some information about what's going
Well,
on.
Richard
with
Moore
this.
should have a panel of candidates put together here in the next day or two, and at that point, he can call a meeting and tell them the progress and where we are at that point.
Okay, next, safety issues. You talked about putting the alarms on the door, which I'm sure that you did order those alarms. My thing is, and I know I've been told also not to micromanage because I've got a background in education and told to watch my ground, but my thing is that when I go back there, a very easy fix would be, there's a way to fence off the part with the one garage door that will just take away a couple lanes of parking. How come no one's brought that up? Because I mentioned that to Don at least 2-3 weeks ago. It's been 24 days, nothing has been done. Why haven't we improved security?
Well, we'd have to put fences around every other entry to the school too.
No,
then,
for
Mrs.
auto shop, we
Washington.
talked about the old place had a fenced-in area, that made it more secure, so why haven't we even thought of that? I'm confused why we're not, if we're talking about safety issues.
We're not adding to. No, sir, I'm
These
sorry.
are,
I mean, she's
There was
talking
a
about the
list.
fence, and that's a good point. Our last auto shop had one. Oh, hang on. I live at 3030 Ashton Hill. Our last auto shop had one. And I'm not saying that your precious little sensors ain't gonna work, but you know, you guys have no problem spending the money on the football field to put a fence around it. You know, you guys need a parent to donate a fence around that, like we had to have a parent donate a sink? I'm just wondering. You could stare at me all you want, it don't
All right.
bother me.
I'm just looking at you, I'm not staring
Thank
at
you
you.
for the statement, sir.
yeah,
Thank you.
thank you,
Thank you.
sir. So I guess I want to see something taken care of. I just want to see something taken care of, and my final is that I would like to publicly say to Mr. Brannick, I am very sorry for this situation. I know there was a statement made about he felt bad that we were pushing back that Janice was trying to push back his resignation date, and that was in no means to try to degrade him or to demean him, and I felt awful when I read those statements, so I would just, I tried to, I would like to publicly apologize for me.
You want to clarify about the modification?
No, I don't. If they want to, they can.
All right, thank you.
Can I do that, Don?
Well, I was gonna go on to Cindy now and see.
Then come back to me, okay.
Okay, Cindy?
I just want to wish all the 8th graders that are going on the Washington DC trip a safe, fun trip in the end of October here.
All right, Janice?
Yeah, I just wanted to explain, because I know I received several phone calls about, well, you could have amended that motion. And we found out that yes, even though Mr. Brannick had said verbally to me, he didn't put it in writing. So once we would have had it in writing, then we, as a board, could have had dialogue and discussed about the modification to the motion. So I wanted you all to know that it has been researched, and that was why that snafu happened.
Thank you. And I have no comments this evening. Moving on to our board calendar of future activities, Dr. Bronco.
We're back here in 3 weeks.
All right, thank you.
Move for adjournment.
We have a motion to adjourn. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second. All those in favor? Aye. We are adjourned.